My name's John Lane. I'm a longtime friend of Jeff's and his family's. I'm grateful to be here to talk about Jeff. Jeffrey Scott Klavansky was born April 14th, 1962, Livonia, Michigan. Parents, Jerry Klavansky, Edwina West, brothers Evie, Michael, Bo, sisters Renee and Beth, stepsister Debbie. Jeff's family moved to Indianapolis in 1965. He lived on the northeast side. I met Jeff in 1977 when his family moved to Carmel. We had a lounge type area at the school. Kids would gather there in between the classes, and that's where I met Jeff. Or I didn't meet him there, but I saw him there. And I remember when I saw him, I remember thinking to myself, this guy's different. Everything about him was different. The way he handled himself was different. The way he walked was different. And I remember thinking, this guy's like a man. You know, we were all like 16 or 17 years old. And this guy seemed like he had like 10 or 15 years on all of us. And so, I watched him, a few days and really met him. And I was thinking, it'd be common for a kid in school to be new. We moved from, I think, Arlington High School to Carmel. It's a big change. I think it'd be easy for a guy to move to a school like that and be maybe a little intimidated or maybe shy or maybe reserved or just maybe uncomfortable, but he wasn't. He was comfortable in his own skin. You could tell he was so confident, and he always remained that way. He had a walk, if you knew him and if you ever saw him move, he had a walk. And his head moved, and it also just oozed confidence. It wasn't cocky, it was just the way he moved. He was comfortable, he had a walk, he had some class, he had style, and he was loaded with confidence. I met Jeff shortly after he moved to Carmel, and I pumped gas at Imperial gas station over on Rangeline Road, and I saw him out in front, so I stepped out and I wanted to meet him, so I introduced myself and said, hi, I know you're new at school, saw you there. We made a plan right there to get together. I think it was something surrounding getting together for a root beer float or something. So we made it happen. We got together and we had a friendship that grew for 40 years. It was about 1977. Spent a lot of those high school days with some of you here at Kay's house on 109th Street. All the family was there, and I was there often enough to feel like I was family.
You were.
It was a nice place to be. Our conversations didn't need to be guarded. We didn't have to sneak around. We didn't have to hide things, and it was a safe spot. And I'm grateful for that. I know there's a lot of people here that were there too. Those are very fond memories. And I did feel like family there. I felt that way, mainly because the family,
You still are, John.
thank you. The family got to know me and they liked me anyway. I met Denise on her first date with Jeff. And Jeff was with me when I met my wife. And we were that close. It took me 7 years to get a date with my wife. I did. Since we did so much together, not only did we become like family, but Aaron votes here, we actually have blood linkage, genetic linkage between my family and Jeff. We don't need to go through that whole chart, but we have a blood link that's genetic. John Wayne told a lot of stories. You've probably seen quotes from John Wayne. If you're younger, John Wayne was an actor. He made cowboy movies, and he used to have a lot of quotes that were pretty punchy and pretty neat. But I read something once, a long, long time ago, where he talked about friends, true friends. A lot of people think, maybe, hey, I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 friends. I'm on Facebook. I got 500 friends. But we're talking about true friends, and those are friends that you might get through life and never have one. And I mean a true friend that you could share the deepest information that you held. Secrets, screw-ups, fears, aspirations. John Wayne, anyway, said that if a man could get through his life and find 5 true friends, that it would be monumental and almost never happen. And so I had 2, and now I have 1, and he's here now. Jeff had so many qualities that we all knew, and I'm not going to embellish. I'm not saying anything to make anybody feel good. I'm just going to tell the truth. Jeff was a man's man, and that means a lot of things, maybe 100 things. I'm going to tell you a few things that a man's man is in my mind's eye with Jeff. He was somebody that was confident, and he was somebody that was bold. He was unafraid to speak his mind, and he was frank with his thoughts. He was a man that was respected by his peers. I don't know a guy here that ever spent any time with him that did not respect him. I don't know anybody that ever met him that didn't like him. I'm going to revert back to high school. A man's man carries cash. And we all had jobs, and we probably made 40 or 50 bucks a week working somewhere. After you filled your car with gas and grabbed a burger, you ended up, what do you got on you? The guy says, I got $5, I got $2, I got 12. Jeff always had $100 or $200 cash. Always. He wasn't spreading it around. But he always had cash. And I'm talking, you thinking about that's a high school kid. That would be like now walking around with a high school kid. What do you got? I got $800 in my front pocket. He had a badass car. Big time. He had a 1969 Olds Cutlass 442. Shiny, olive green, mag wheels. I think they were Krager's. It was a car you wanted to die for when you were 17, and even more so at 56. Michael inherited, he had a badass car he inherited from Jeff. It was a 69 Dodge Dart. Jeff was a man's man from high school on. He was a man's man because he was a guy you could hang out with for a long time and not get burnt out. You hang out with people for a while, 1 or 2 or 3 days on a vacation or whatever the situation. Anyway, you kind of get to the point where I've had enough of you, but Jeff was the kind of guy you could hang out with a long time because he had such a great disposition and he was such a man's man that you didn't get tired of him. And he was unique in that way. Man's man looks out for other people, looks out for his family, women, friends, and even a stranger. I was with Jeff a lot. I spent a lot of hours with him, and he did look out for other people. Man's man can speak to dogs. I remember being confronted by dogs and almost running, and Jeff would be like, no, hold on a minute. Start talking to the dog. Well, he always had dogs. If you weren't close to him, let me tell you, there was German Shepherds, usually 2, from the beginning on. Some of the names were J.D. and Mason, Grady, Max, Alice, Raina, Tanner. Man's man looks out for kids, makes them stand behind him. He did that for his friends and the big guys too. If you're on a street corner, weird guy coming around, Jeff got between you and whatever was there, because he was a man's man. And he held you accountable. He'd tell you if you screwed up. Told me a few times I screwed up. Most people might look at you and just say, I don't hurt the guy's feelings, and just forget it ever happened. Held you accountable. He was a man's man. But no one knows that. He was strong. He was strong. And I don't mean strong the way it can be in a lot of ways. I mean strong, like powerful. He had strength beyond what was normal. He was in the 1 percentile. And there was a window in his life where I guarantee you he was the strongest man in the county. Pound for pound, strongest man in the county. Everyone who knew Jeff knew he had an arm wrestling legacy. And when I tell you it's a legacy, that's not an embellishment, that's not to make anybody feel good. He had a legacy, and I watched it for years. Anybody that hung around him in high school saw him go up against people that were twice his weight or more, twice the size, no necks, with gigantic arms. And he sat down across the table from him, and I can remember they'd smile and smirk. See Jeff over there, and he'd turn the smile upside down 2 seconds. A lot of venues we had to leave shortly thereafter because some people's feelings got hurt. Some guys got embarrassed in front of their girlfriends, and it was time to go. That was Killer K. Killer K in the young days, and that's why he was Killer K, because he was a man's man, and he was strong, he was powerful, and he was brave. He was afraid of no one. I always marveled at how brave and tough my friend was. And he carried himself, I think it was Dwayne Johnson. It was like that was his aura. It was like he was 6'8" and he weighed 280 pounds, 0 body fat. And he was fearless. And must have started when he was about 3, because he told a story that he couldn't get through. It took 2-minute story. It took him 10 minutes because he laughed so hard. Vacation with the family, I think it must have been about 1966. Piled into the station wagon. I don't know where we were going. I was asking Beth earlier. It might have been going to Florida. They might have been going to Michigan. They were all in the vacation mode in the station wagon, and they got to wherever they're going. Jeff's about 3, I'm guessing. And they got out, and the kids probably either wore their suits or got in too quick, but wherever they were was a big swimming pool. The older kids all dove in and jumped. Jeff said he just took off running as fast as he could and jumped as far into the pool as he could. But the only drawback was he had no idea how to swim. So Jerry, with his wallet, his clothes, and his watch, jumped in and pulled him out. We were just talking this story just a few months ago. He just laughed. I love that story. Love the fact that Jerry jumped in and with his clothes on to pull him out. So the thing is, he was fearless. He came out of the womb fearless. It was from 3, and it went on and on and on. He was a protective man. He protected everybody. His family and his friends, of course. And many, many times, especially his brother Michael, if you wanted to start flack with Michael, you were best just to step around him and go straight to Jeff, because that's where you were going to end up anyway. When Michael came of age and size, he reciprocated. Those brothers were together. Nothing was going to happen to either one of them. They were close. He was lucky. That was his best friend and his brother. I say these things and I want you to know that Jeff never started trouble with anybody. He was a tough guy, he was a brave guy, he was a fearless guy, and he was a man's man, but he never looked for trouble. Not once did I ever see him look for trouble. He didn't do it. And when I describe somebody with those character traits, it sounds like a guy that's kind of cocky and looking for trouble. It wasn't him. He was King K, later become Special K. Used to buy him shirts, hats, pants that said Special K. Find him on the Kellogg site. He loved them. The bastard stopped making them. I just tried recently. They're no more. He was Special K. He was a man's man in every respect to the reference. Wasn't the tallest guy in the room, he wasn't the heaviest guy in the room, he wasn't the bulkiest guy in the room, but he was always the biggest man in the room. He was the biggest man in the room. Saw it so many times. He was grateful. I'll tell you how grateful he was. And the cliche, it's the old if I had a nickel thing. If I had a nickel, for every time, and I got friends here that'll vouch, for every time that Jeff bragged about his wife and family, I'd have a barrel full of nickels. We didn't get through a night